Employers of Reddit, what is the most fricked up thing you have caught your staff doing? NSW. Worked at a very large software company when I came out of university. My team had considerable turnover and were in need of a manager in the quality assurance department. Mr. X is hired. Resume is impeccable. Well dressed, yada yada yada. 3 weeks into his employment he comes to me and asks for $5 for lunch, claiming that he'd forgot his wallet. Turns out that he asked 90% of the people on our floor for $5 and collected about $360 in 2 hours. At the same time, he was scoping out all the spots that people kept change in their desks. That night, he returned, raided all the desks for change. It was estimated to be over $2,000 and stole 22 high-end development laptops. Never saw him again. Fake name, fake SSN, fake resume, etc. God dang, that's some pretty good conning. I worked at a startup many years ago. We were located in what had previously been a small motorcycle dealership. Because of that design, the front had 2 big windows where they presumably had motorcycles on display. The company mirrored the windows and turned those 2 spaces into a conference room and the VP's office. You couldn't see a dang thing inside those windows with the mirroring. We'd be in the conference room and people would come by and start fixing their hair and junk. So the owner of the building comes by one night and sees the VP boffing one of his employees on his desk. The thing about mirrored windows is they only work if there's light outside to mirror. It was dark out and his office light was on, so their shenanigans were in full display of the traffic out front, in what was, literally, a showroom window. Had a coworker who managed a skate shop. He got fired when he let a kid run the shop while he met a girl at the bus stop out front, then fricked her behind the shop. My father once caught a drunk employee masturbating on a colleague's printer in the colleague's office, an open space office. My dad once caught one of his female employees sniffing other people's shoes. On the internet, nobody knows your dog. Nobody. I worked in IT in a large organization. I got a call about a workstation that was in a lab that didn't get a lot of use. It wouldn't take any patches that were pushed to it and was giving the users a lot of strange errors. I wasn't even able to connect to the desktop remotely, though I could still mount the network drive. I start looking around the drive in a few locations that viruses at the time were using to store their payload, and didn't find anything, but happened to notice that the drive was full. This was odd because most drives at the place didn't even get half full and this computer got less use than almost any other, and the use it got didn't involve creating a lot of files, or big files. Long story short, I found gigs and gigs of P on this thing, like 30-50 gigs of P. Our sysadmin had an everyone gets one philosophy. No matter what you were doing, we wouldn't rat you out to your boss unless you got a chance to not do it again. Since this was a shared computer, and we didn't want to get involved with people we didn't know personally, we just deleted the P. I mean, there's no way you can not notice that your 50 gigs of P has been deleted. About a week later we get a call that the problem is back. I check and the drive is full again. 50 freaking gigs of P downloaded in 1 week. Guy was fired that day. I'm actually more impressed than I am disturbed. It's like he took it as a challenge. Strike down my stash and it will return more powerful than you could even imagine. I used to own a pizza place and in our basement is where we stored everything. I sent one of the kids downstairs to get boxes and about 20 minutes go by and I'm thinking, where the heck is Jen? I send one of the guys who works for me downstairs to go check what's going on. Mind you, it's a Friday night and we are jam-packed. 10 minutes goes by and I'm thinking, alright, enough is enough. I go downstairs myself. I see the girl who I originally sent downstairs blowing the guy who works for me who I just sent down and also getting railed out by some other guy who I didn't even know. We lost 2 employees that night. We caught one of our bakers brewing pineapple beer in the upright prover. She was then getting raucously drunk and trying to fight the other bakers. It was pretty freaking good pineapple beer, but we fired her. It was pretty freaking good pineapple beer, but we fired her. Sounds like a raise was in order. Pineapple beer is a tough brew to get pretty freaking good. Caught a guy washing his dong in the sink. We let it slide, but we called him Soap Dong from then on. Well, it's not going to clean itself. I used to be a manager at a McDonald's. Always had this one dude that was a particular pain in the butt. One day, He takes his break and smokes with his friends behind the dumpsters. He was 45 minutes late. Whatever. I write him up, but I need the help, so I put him back in drive-thru, taking orders. 10 minutes later the drive-thru line just stops. Cars aren't moving and everyone at the second window is wondering where the customers have gone during rush hour. I walk back to the payment window to see this same employee twitching on the ground. I was terrified he was dying. He wouldn't move. Didn't even seem to know we were there. Called 911 and the cops, EMTs, and fire department all show up and try to all fit into our tiny back area, filling up the kitchen. Paramedics get him out of the store and eventually get him to talk. He had been smoking K2, or synthetic marijuana. A lot of it really messed him up. Technically not illegal though, so nothing was done, despite the huge scene and everything. Managed a few Jack-in-the-Box restaurants. 1. Notice graveyard shift is running really slow drive-through times. Look at the cameras and scary gangbanger cook is banging 60-year-old hippie manager in the break room. 2. Drive up to a store at 3 AM. Nobody will come to the speaker. Find crew on the roof smoking weed and playing poker with a deck of cards made out of fry boxes. 3. Caught a guy stealing 2 boxes of mayo onion sauce. That's 24 bags of mayo, 2 pounds each. I asked him why and he said I need it. Here are some more. 4. Some stores would dress up for Halloween. I walked into one and the guy behind the register is wearing a skin-tight dress and a wig. No big deal. The problem was, his junk was popping out the front so bad. This dude was packing a wiffle bat. I don't want to be a jerk and ruin the fun, so I decide to have a costume contest. The winner gets $50 and the rest of the shift off paid. He won and I did not have to hear old ladies complain about the guy. 5. I had a guy call in sick because he had no underwear to wear. 6. When you work for Jack-in-the-Box corporate offices in the training, human resources, maintenance, buyers or any other non-restaurant job, they make you do 1 day of crew training so you know what the crew goes through. So I was taking a new human resources lawyer to her training day and she had a nervous breakdown after about 2 hours working the fryers. She started sweating and looking ill. The next thing you know she flips out and runs out the door screaming. It was slow and she had a helper trainer. Used to be a supervisor at a poultry processing plant. Walked in the bathroom and caught an employee fricking a chicken carcass. I work construction for a living, and while the boss and myself were working on one job while 2 others from our crew were supposed to be laying hardwood at another location, well, my boss receives a call from the homeowner telling us immediately to head to her house. We get there, and these 2 buttholes have brought in a go-kart and had the engine dismantled, and for the past 2 weeks no real work had been done. Homeowner asked if we were getting paid to work on go-karts or her house. They were promptly fired. Saw a member of my staff heat up some roast chicken in the microwave in the stockroom. I went back in a few minutes later and she had taken it out of the plastic container and used a shoebox that had been lying around on the floor for a week as a plate. After she finished eating it she put the bones in the shoebox and left the grease covered box on the floor and went home. She is the most dirty freaking weirdo I have ever met. Reminds me of an assistant teacher who used the school oven to cook an entire turkey for his girlfriend. Then 2 weeks later brought the spoiled leftovers to feed the special ed kids. Worked in a small cafe that had big windows at the entrance facing a bank parking lot across the street. On his first day this guy tells me he's going somewhere, doesn't ask for a break, just tells me he's leaving. I watch him go across the street, wait in the bank's ATM area for a few minutes, then meet a guy for 30 seconds and come back across the street and straight into the bathroom of the cafe. Sniff, sniff, cough, and out he comes into the very fancy and very tiny cafe. When I told him to go home he said okay, but by law you have to pay me for the entire shift. He wasn't wrong, but he was certainly an butthole. Sounds like he's had some experience in being fired mid-shift. Not me specifically, but my dad has owned his own company for a while and I grew up being involved with it. I remember when I was young, sometimes I'd have to go to work with my dad and he'd let me play around on one of the computers while he worked. I remember one time, I'm just dicking around on Neopets or something, when I click the drop down bar on the browser. I'm young as crap and I know the sites weren't allowed. It was literally a bunch of blatant P sites. Some typed out and various cases as if that made a difference. I just remember it being sex.com, girls.com, girls.com, etc etc. I was worried it was my dad doing it and that I'd get in trouble if I brought it up, so I didn't. About a year later my dad fired one of his co-workers. I didn't find out till I got the talk it was for the P. The dude would come into work early, beat off, stay late, beat off, and act like he was doing extra work. Once when I worked at IHOP I was closing and went out to the dumpster to throw out some garbage and found my totally hot manager blowing the head chef, ice. When I worked nights at Sonic, there was a night when one of the cooks knew his parents were going to give him a drug test, and we all knew he wouldn't pass it, so one of the other cooks went to the bathroom and gave him his sample in a styrofoam cup. As he handed it to guy getting tested, he said, "Here, I should pass." They then decided to put it in the steamer to keep it warm and viable. He didn't pass. My dad caught one of his employees stealing cash from him as well as others. He suspected it initially, as he would be missing $10 here and there, but she got bolder and started taking more. So my dad got a little motion activated camera to put in his office and put $300 in his wallet. At the end of the day, there was only $200. Checked the camera and there she was. The worst part is, when he confronted her, he started with "I know what you did, and I know it's been going on for a long time." That was the point at which he admitted to drinking every day at lunch, thinking that's what he meant. She's a dental hygienist. A guy at my last job was spending his workdays doing other people's taxes on tax software that he pirated on his work computer. He got caught because he was eating up tons of company bandwidth. After he was fired they found a ton of movies and music on that same computer. What a weirdly responsible and productive way to screw around at work. The assistant manager at my old bar job stayed behind one night after her shift drinking with her boyfriend and 2 other customers. They were pouring their own drinks, shots, pints of lager and a lot of whiskey and vodka. After just dancing around and talking, the assistant manager decided it would be funny for her and her friend to strip and run along the bar naked. She was caught on CCTV and the big boss sacked her. I was friends with the supervisor and he showed me the tape. It was hilarious. She was hired back 2 months later by the big boss, given her old job with even more responsibility. Insane. Working in the military I watched over a bunch of the people who didn't have somewhere official to work. They'd do things like escort civilians around while they did contracting work. We had guys come from the prison to do yard work for their work release. I caught one of the escorts, female, having sex with one of the male inmates. Outside, standing up in the middle of a field, having sex. I asked her about it and she said she was bored and she thought he was attractive. Totally consensual. Women were no longer allowed to escort the prisoners. Super weird. Oh, I remembered one that my friend told me. He works in IT for the military and they were looking at network traffic and noticed something weird. Turns out a military guy on base was looking at child pee from a work computer. Stupid fricks. Managed a gas station for about 3 years. Came in one night during night shift unannounced because I had forgotten to email a report to my boss earlier in the day. Walk into the office in the back and my 2 employees, one a 50-year-old man who had a wife and kids, the other an 18-year-old girl who had been out of high school for 2 months, are just going the frick at it on the desk. I flipped crap. Christmas party a month ago. Employee was smoking crack in the bathroom. I work at a sports bar cantina style spot. We have jello shots in big syringes and they're a big hit, especially with girls. Well, one day I go out to the back patio and there's a crowd like someone is having a dance battle. Except it's the middle of the day and we're playing classic rock. I take a closer look and a few of the employees and regulars are watching one of our security guards inject the jello shot into his ass. He was off the clock and it was funny, so I told him to throw that syringe away and try not to die from alcohol poisoning on the premises. I used to own a restaurant. We had a cook selling drugs out the back door. People were still knocking back there looking for him months after he was fired. We had one cook who had a key to lock up. When I came in one day I noticed that the till was short and it looked like some wine bottles were missing. When I ran the time reports from the previous day it showed this guy clocking in and out at something like 3 AM. The dumbass thought you had to clock in for the register part of the computer to open. and he clocked in under his own name to snatch some cash. Yep, got fired. I guess these are more dumbass things than fricked up things, but still. When I was managing a Jersey Mike's in college, I had an employee who I hired who was a culinary student. I had no idea why he was applying to a sandwich shop, but he seemed alright even though I knew more about food than he did. Immediately we knew something was off when he used the terms wife, fiancé and girlfriend interchangeably when describing his significant other who worked as a cashier at CVS across the street. Fast forward about a month, and we realize that he is constantly using the internet on our cash register, which was just a touchscreen computer. During the afternoons when it was slow, he wouldn't take care of any of the cleaning, just constantly surf the internet. Around the same time, some of my other employees, who went to the same college as me, started talking about how he was trying to get them to sleep with his wife, girlfriend, fiancé, and eventually him as well. So, one afternoon I tell our franchise owner about this, because we think it's kind of funny, while we are talking about how to get him to pull his share of the weight cleaning. So we decide to check the internet history and it's mostly been deleted except for a swingers site that he had been to that day. The dumbass had his username and password saved so we got to see his whole profile, complete with pictures of him and his wife being penetrated by different dudes every which way as possible. We then decide to check the temporary internet files, and we see all kinds of mostly pictures of other swingers who are like fat and 55, but also everything else including a lot of bestiality involving mostly horses and women. Needless to say, he didn't have a job after that. I manage a home health company. I discovered that one of my caregivers stole an entire morphine drip bag from a dying client of ours. She had 10,000 units of morphine in her system when she was drug tested, and she sold the rest on the street. I was eating while watching this. Now I can't enjoy my sandwich. #feature me. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.